Yo and hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hobby Think Tank here on Bench Clear Media. Every week you're going to get some thought-provoking topic. That's the idea between you get a random draw of me, Mike, Danny Black, or John Keating. It's only four of us, so you know you're going to get one of the two of us every week, and we think that's important to be consistent for you guys. Today it's me and Mike. Mike, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks, Mike. How are you? Building the new beast.
Good. Huh?
Building the new beast.
I am building a new beast. I am excited about that. A beast extension and then a new, I don't know what I'm going to call the comic one. We need to have a name for it. Maybe I'll put a contest out there to name the new cabinet. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
But that's not an ethical dilemma, what to name a cabinet. But there are a lot of ethical things, and we're going to talk about hobby ethics tonight. What is it? Does it matter? Should you care? Who cares? There's people that land on all sides of this argument, right? And I think for me, hobby ethics is very important, but it's how how do you define that? What areas does something go from being benign to being an ethical dilemma, right? So what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I strongly encourage people who are watching to put comments in. You're going to disagree with us on certain things, and you'll agree with us on some things. And that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. We also want to be a little thoughtful about how we approach some of these things. And some of these things, Mike might change my mind about the ethics, and I might change his. But ultimately, we want to be ethical. We want to build relationships with buyers, sellers, dealers, whoever it might be, hobby
Friends.
shops, friends, exactly.
And that has to be built on trust.
Yeah.
First and foremost, it's the bedrock of life and this hobby.
Yeah.
If you don't trust the people you're dealing with, it's no fun really. It just sucks all the fun right out of it. And I've been through periods in the hobby where there was a lot of lack of trust, and we may get into some of those. And it's a chaotic time when that's happening.
Yeah.
The problem is you can't regulate ethical behavior. It is also pretty subjective. What one person thinks is horrible and akin to, some great sin, another person might say, not that big a deal.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. I've talked about these issues on my channel before, and people have said, you're an idiot for thinking that's unethical. You're leaving money on the table or stuff like that.
Right.
Which is fine.
So we do have to individually define what that is. And yet I think corporately as a hobby, there are some things we can all point to and say, yeah, that's probably not very ethical to act in that way. So do you have any examples or things? What do you want to bring up first?
Well, just really basic things. When you're on eBay, if you're selling on eBay, things like putting in PSA 10 with a question mark after it is not particularly ethical, because people are searching for PSA 10 for that card, and they see that and they might think that, and they're new to collecting. Also, adding in no auto in the title, because people are looking for auto and you're saying no auto. These are really basic. eBay 1 of 1 is another one, and putting in the RP for reprint in the title. Those are all things that we should all be avoiding in our eBay listings. What do you think?
Interesting. We're already on scenario or thing number one, and it's like, yeah, I hate all those things. Is that an ethical dilemma or just stupidity? Or I don't know.
I think it could be both.
Yeah, right. And there's a lot of caveat emptor on eBay. I mean, you need to read everything and make sure that I've been duped myself multiple times.
Yep.
And when I went back, I'd read a listing really quick and the price would be good. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm buying this. And then I'd get it and I'm like, yep. And I'd go read their description and it was there was enough there that I should have figured it out. And I was so quick on the draw that I screwed myself, basically.
Yeah.
That's happened. So I don't know that I put that on the seller, but there are definitely things that are just like eBay 101 might be the dumbest thing ever created by eBay listers, eBay sellers. I do hate the non-auto thing. I don't like any of those things. I'm just trying to decide if that's an ethical dilemma or just
Let me
stupid.
give you another eBay one here.
Okay.
So the 1961 Topps dice game, the test dice game cards, extraordinarily rare, very, very valuable. The guy found them, I think, in his attic or something, or his father's attic maybe, and he didn't know what they were. He did a lot of research, couldn't figure them out, so he posted them for $4.99. Buy it now, each $4.99 each.
Right.
You go on to eBay and you see those, and you, being the vintage expert that you are, know
Right.
what they are, and you see them. Do you
Right.
buy them, or do you say something to them?
I would probably say something to him just because, but I'd have to go as much of a vintage expert. I might go, oh crap, you know, I might not even know how good those cards are, you
Right.
know, and so I think if you're naive yourself, if you're both naive, then nobody's to blame from there's no ethics there. But if you know, like, whoa, wait a second, I think these should, he's really selling himself short here. You'd want to tell him.
Does it matter if it's Joe Schmo with 12 feedback on eBay and no sports cards, or if it's Steel City Collectibles or some other massive eBay store that should know better?
Yes, that does matter.
Yeah.
I mean, you can translate that to like going into a shop, right? And so I don't know if it was you that talked about this or, you have the SSSP, card that's in the dollar box.
Right.
And you see it and you're like, this is like a 200, you look it up comps or something. You're like, this is a $250 card or something. Do you tell the shop owner or do you buy it? And there's, to me, a shop owner, if they don't know better, this was on this was on Wax Pack Heroes podcast, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, not Junk Wax Hero, not to be confused with you.
Right.
But, do you turn that in to the shop owner and say, hey, you're selling yourself short here? Now, the cool thing is the shop owner would go, hey, my bad. I put it in there. I didn't know. That's what the shop owner should do. They should be ethical and say, nope, I had it in the dollar box. That's my fault.
It's a great
You
point.
can have it for $1. Right?
Yep. But if it's a 13-year-old selling, he's got a table at a card show.
Right.
And he's got that in a $1 box, probably tell him, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely is it almost case by case scenario? Is it, who are you dealing with? Because at the end of the day, like when we go look at collections, right? And you're dealing with someone, a card person or a non-card person, someone that should know better or someone that has no clue. We feel most of the time we're dealing with people that have no clue. And so our job is to both educate them and deal fairly with them for a lot of reasons. That's a huge part about it. And two, you don't want to I never want to burn a bridge.
Right.
You never want to have anyone. Why would you do anything to sour your reputation?
Yeah.
Because as you well know, having a good reputation, having trust in the hobby, all of those things are very difficult to earn, but incredibly easy to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, you can lose your reputation like that.
Yeah. That's why I enjoy your Chasing Cardboard and Chris Sewell's channel so much, because you talk about educating the buyer, or educating the seller on what they have versus just saying, oh, wow, they've got $10,000 worth of cards here. I'm going to offer them 1,500 and convince them it's only worth 2,500. So it's a fair price. And so there's that honesty builds that trustworthiness. And then you get more sellers who reach out to you to say, hey, I've watched Chasing Cardboard. I respect what you do. Make me an offer.
Yeah, dealing with people fairly gets you more in the long run than unfairly dealing with somebody gets you in the short run.
Yeah.
Would you rather do one deal and have it be bad, bad on your end, you're being unethical, or would you rather do 10 deals doing them all right? Because you'll get the other 9 if you're right on each one. You know what I mean?
Yep. 100%.
To me, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah. What do you have for an idea or situation?
Well, we talked about this a little bit before, but again, I've lived through some scenarios in the hobby where, you've got shady behavior going on, kind of where there's smoke, there's fire. The first one is breakers. I think breakers need to be ethical. If they pull a card, you need to give away the card, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not
the
talking
old
about
downtown scenario from last week.
Yeah, from last week. There was one last week that happened.
Oh yeah, yep. On Whatnot,
Really?
somebody had the downtown, and then he took it off camera and then brought his hand back, and the downtown, which was behind the front card but could be seen, was gone.
That's just somebody I want to sit down in a room by myself and go, "What the heck, man?"
Yeah. Well, he's no longer breaking for that company.
Oh, not surprising.
Yeah.
But there, we've had in the last couple of years, let's say, multiple scenarios where breakers have done things that are questionable at a minimum,
Yeah.
right? And to me, that's stealing. You're stealing from the person that bought into the break.
Yep.
And
100% stealing.
It's almost criminal. It is criminal, actually.
It is. Yeah. It's hard to see anybody like that getting arrested for it, but you're right. It is criminal.
And that bothers me. And then again, that enough of that stuff, it doesn't take a lot of bad apples, right? To go, well, all breakers are bad, which
Exactly.
is of course not true.
Of course.
And yet you can do enough damage to the hobby where that becomes nobody wants to do breaks anymore. And you've ruined that aspect of the hobby because of a few bad people. That nobody's holding them accountable other than, maybe Sports Card Radio or somebody, but there's no accountability. There's no, breaker police out there that are going to suspend you or prosecute you or whatever. Right.
Yep.
Which I think is a problem for the hobby. There's no oversight in the hobby.
I'm
going to nominate you as president of the Hobby Oversight Committee.
Perfect.
Tonight, Mike, you're going to be in charge.
We should do a hobby think tank on should there be regulation in the hobby.
Ooh, let us know down below what you think about that idea. That could be a whole episode.
And what type of regulation?
So when we came up with this topic, I immediately thought of breakers, right? And that I thought of, trimming a card, knowingly altering a card, trimming it. Now, I don't think this is where some people get in a gray area. I don't think wiping down a Chrome card is altering a card.
Sure, I agree. But what about the cleaning service that you see out there where they're actually using cleaner on cards?
I don't think you should be able to add any foreign substance to a card to clean it. You can clean it off if you can get your fingerprints off with a rag, microfiber rag or whatever, go right ahead. Because the fingerprint wasn't meant to be there. You stuck it on there, right?
Yeah. But if you're selling a car, you're probably going to wash your car beforehand, right?
Sure.
What if you get that card cleaned, and you've paid to clean the card, you sell it, and somebody gets the card graded, and it comes back a 10? Then was cleaning it bad if the grading companies can't figure it out?
God, such a gray area. That's the funny thing about all this is a lot of it's not black and white.
Right.
A lot of times there's a lot of gray area. It's ambiguous. Wow. But here's the thing though. I wouldn't want to own that card. Yeah. I would never know if I bought it, but that's the thing that I think, let's talk disclosure, right? Just disclose that you cleaned the card.
Sure. As part of your selling, you put it in the description or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're on eBay.
Yeah. I mean, transparency, openness, honesty seems like the way to go. But I don't see anybody doing that, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's talk trimming, because trimming has been around since there have been baseball cards, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Trimming cards, filling corners, all these things that have been done for decades and decades.
When you say filling corners, what do you mean?
So you can build a corner back up with
Yeah.
paper to make it sharper. If it's been rounded over or whatever, again, it's an art for sure. I've never done it. I don't know how to do it, but again, if it's altered, yes, the grading company should be smart enough to figure that out and have ways to detect those types of things, and they'll mark the card altered accordingly. And to me, that's okay. Like, if you think about, comic books, I collect comic books as well. It's industry standard to press your comics.
Same thing with magazines. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to press them, to send them to a person that gets all the wrinkles out of the spine and, fixes folds in the cover or whatever. They can do all that, and it's not considered restored. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you can restore a comic as well. That's a separate thing to do, to restore a comic. And that would get a different label on the grading by CGC or whoever. So it's funny. Why do we think we can't do? And I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit. You can do it in other collectibles. Why is it so taboo in baseball cards or sports cards? Right.
Probably because it's new.
Okay.
Right. If there were some big thing that happened that made people say, oh, maybe cleaning cards isn't so bad, it would become less taboo. But as of right now, it's fairly new to clean cards. There's a pretty popular cleaning service that I see advertised on Instagram a lot. The comments are a mix on that, any post about that, where some people say it's perfectly fine, but then a lot of people say, I would never buy a cleaned card. Well, you probably wouldn't know.
Right. What about trimming, though? Is that a different animal for you?
Absolutely. Trimming is bad. You can't get a card graded appropriately that's trimmed. Now, if I am going to keep a card in my PC and I know I'm never going to sell it and actually get it graded as authentic trimmed or whatever, if you can do that, then fine. I can see trimming a card to make it look better, knowing that it's going to grade that way. But otherwise, no.
So are you familiar with Boda?
Boda. I don't think so.
So how long? Remind me again how long you've been back in the hobby?
2.5 years.
Okay. So Boda is Blowout Detective Agency. It's a group of 3, 4, 5, 6 guys
on Blowout forums
that are incredibly good at detecting cards that have been graded a 5. It gets snapped, comes back, and it gets altered, trimmed, manipulated in some way, and comes back an 8. And they'll show the 2 cards, and they'll show all these little red circles around all the different places that identify. Every card is a fingerprint, believe it or not. We think they're all the same and you can't tell any difference. And that might be certainly more true of more modern cards, but vintage cards have a fingerprint aspect to them. There are unique things on just about every vintage card that makes it unique.
Yeah.
And so they've over the years been very good at calling out cards that had been done this way, and the investigation has led down the path of, identifying certain sellers that would do this practice. A lot of auction houses were implicated in being cooperative to that effort, because obviously if a card grade's much higher, it's going to sell for a lot more. Who's the wiser, right?
Right.
It got graded. You have the accusation to PSA of being favorable to certain submitters that would submit giant, huge sums of cards, all to be graded, and they were getting through.
Yeah.
Trimmed cards. They were getting through altered cards, and it was lots of stains being cleaned, corners being built up, trimming, all of these things. Because you can press a card to make, you can elongate the cardboard by pressing it, and then you trim that off. It's still the correct size. It basically tapers the edge, right?
Yeah.
I have a whole how-to video on that on my channel. I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. But I am 100% sure that I own cards that are graded a numerical grade that are somehow altered or trimmed, that it was not caught.
Yeah.
100%
But
sure.
but without knowing, it doesn't really matter, right?
It doesn't. Yes, you're right. I don't know. It bothers me.
The only risk is
goes on.
Yeah, the only risk is if you crack the slab to have it sent to another company, and that other company says, no, this was trimmed.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not going to do that. So,
Of course.
But yeah, it just bothers me that it occurs. It bothers me that people try to manipulate the system in a way. I don't know why it bothers me, but it does. It shouldn't matter, but it really does. It bothers me to my core.
I'm going to throw another scenario at you. So you order a card off of eBay, and it's give you this card here. It's a numbered to 50.
Yep.
And you paid for it, the value of a number to 50. You get it in the mail, and it's actually the number to 5. You go back and you look at it, and you say, I paid for it like it's the number to 50 card, but they mailed me the wrong one.
I 100% contact the seller.
Yeah, I would too. But a lot of people wouldn't.
Well, what's funny, I've had wrong cards sent to me. And even in the scenario where the card they sent me was more valuable than the other card. And usually, you know what they say? My bad, just keep it. I'll send you the card that I was supposed to sell you.
Yeah.
But the reality is that's not the card you bought. So you're being unethical if you keep the card.
Yeah.
Because yes, it was a mistake, but probably an honest mistake.
Yeah, I think we'll get a lot of disagreement there. A lot of people, I think, will say it's the seller's fault. It is the seller's fault. But you can also be honest and just say, you sent me the wrong card. I'm happy to mail this one back to you.
And they'll usually, most sellers, in fact, every time this has happened to me where I've actually sent the card back, they'll PayPal me money for shipping, to cover the shipping, to mail it back, all that, which if we all think, well, of course they should. Well, they don't have to, but they should. And most of them do. Almost all of them do. But yeah, you're being unethical if you keep the card.
Yeah.
I think.
I agree.
Well, keep going. I love the scenarios. Do you got more?
Yeah, so this is a weird one. Let's say you're at a card show and you're standing at a table and the seller isn't there. They've got somebody else there at that moment. And somebody else is at the table and they want this card for $100. And they say, oh man, I wish the seller were here. I want to buy this card for $100. They move on saying they're going to come back. The seller comes back and you offer the seller $85 for the card. And the seller says, yes, I'll take it. Is it ethical for you to buy it for $85 and then go track down that other person and sell it to them for $100?
Wow. Has this happened to you? That sounds like a far-fetched scenario, but
no, this comes from a channel I like. Sports Cards Once Again.
Okay.
Brought this up.
Yeah. So the irony of that is it's happened to me. Where someone finds a card that I want, they buy it, and they charge me a little bit, and I pay for it, and happily do. I can also say no.
Yeah.
I would just be honest. I would want to know, like my friends that do that for me, they tell me what they got the card for. And well, I'll give you $10 more, $5 more to help you make a little profit. Thanks for doing that.
Yep.
You know, but if the guy who bought the card for 85 doesn't disclose to the other guy that, hey, I got this for 85 from the guy, especially when the guy goes back, right? If he does go back to that dealer,
right?
Because that happens to us all the time. Oh, the card's gone that we wanted. Like, oh man, I
Right.
was going to buy that, and it's gone. You're not going to go try to tell you, hey, who bought that? Show me, point him out to me. I want to go.
Yeah.
But then you could go make a deal and be proactive and say, hey, I know you bought this for 85. I'll make you $15 right now. I'll give you 100.
Yeah.
That's not unethical because you're just seeking out the card, right?
Right. Right.
I don't know. Where do you stand on that one? That's a interesting.
I think it's pretty enterprising.
Yeah.
I think if you've got an opportunity to make a little money, it might be gone by the time that buyer comes back, and you have secured the card for them at the price they wanted.
You're doing them a service. I see how you can twist that in a way that sounds almost noble to do. It's very nice of you to help that guy out, Mike. That's so cool. Okay. Yeah. Where do you stand on the ethics of shill bidding?
Extraordinarily unethical.
Yeah. It might be the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
It's certainly top 3. Trimmings probably were, if I was to rank unethical behavior, yeah, it's up there. Shill bidding.
So
I've been the victim of it. I'm sorry. I've been the victim of it so many times. It's not even funny.
I don't know that I have. I don't know how you might know that.
So back in the day, eBay's gotten smarter about this, but you could see you can see now how many bids, but now they've got all the asterisks, on your name where you really can't tell who the other bidders are. That used to not be true. You could see the whole name and you'd see the same name and you could click on that person's user ID. This still may be true actually. And you can see, for example, well, this person's bid on 150 items. They've won 2 of them and they've done 98% of their bidding with this seller. Mm-hmm. Well, that tells you right there that that's a shiller on behalf of that seller. So my wife's calling. I will tell her I'm in the middle of a very important discussion about ethics. But so you could tell it was easy to discover that, or at least have a pretty good idea of what's going on there. The guy never wins, but he's shilling in. And it's not that a shill bidder's trying to win the card, right?
No, I don't think they ever are. They might be selling the same card and trying to bump up the comps for it.
Right. If you see a lot of bids that are very incremental, and you can kind of detect it because it'll have the asterisks and, you'll have the same letters on either side, right? And so you can kind of see it's the same person. And if it's a dollar increment, they're just trying to nudge that card up higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. Their goal is not to win.
Yeah.
It's to make the person who put in the normal bid, which is, I'm going to put in my max bid and it'll go for what it goes for. Right?
Yeah. So speaking of shill bidding, you're trying to sell a card.
Yeah.
And somebody makes you an offer and that their offer, that they looked up comps on eBay, and the one comp they found, was a shill bid. Do you tell them, or do you take their money for the amount that they offered?
Well, I wouldn't go to the depths of investigating the comp as being shill bid or not.
But if the card's worth $20 and they say, oh, it sold for 50 this morning, but that it couldn't have sold for 50 for real.
How do you, and they offer like 40, let's say, right?
Yeah.
You're still getting double quote unquote market value, but yeah, I don't know that I'd go that deep to know, especially on a $20 card or a $40 card. I don't.
Yeah, fair.
If I have it out there for 50, there's a reason I put it out there for 50. If it's, whatever my price is. I wouldn't put a $20 card at $50 and hope there's a sucker out there that'll buy it.
Yeah.
Because it'll just
But
sit
if you
there.
didn't have a price.
Oh, I got you. Like you're selling it off eBay then. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I do hate when people use only high comps to comp their cards. And I hate when people use old comps to comp their cards.
Right. This card sold in 2021 for $150. Well, okay.
Yeah, right. That's where I'm at. Even though a bunch have sold since for $80, you're like, dude, I'm not paying you high comp from 6 months ago or a year ago. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just not. And that's where, now, in fairness, the seller is trying to get the most money for their card, and they should.
Yep.
You're the one, as the buyer, has to decide whether or not that's an appropriate price. You can always say no or counter.
Absolutely. Yep.
I think there's some incumbency on both parties, right?
Yep.
You can't blame a seller for trying to get the max value for their card, but at the same time, you don't have to fall for it. So
yeah,
that's part of our negotiating episode that we did.
Yep. That's
You
right.
should go back and watch that, right?
That wasn't too long ago.
Nope. Any other last second scenarios? We're at our 30-minute.
Yeah. One last real quick one.
Yeah.
The other day in Target, I saw they had retail boxes out with packs, loose packs, for the first time I'd seen in years.
Okay.
Normally it's just blasters and hangers that aren't open. And I got thinking, what if somebody picked up those packs and started not necessarily weighing them, but feeling them to see if there were any that were heavy? I'm sure people bring a scale to Target, but probably unlikely. Is it unethical to feel a pack? It's definitely unethical to weigh it, right?
Well,
To feel it to see if it's heavier.
Pack searching has been going on since there were reasons to search packs. Prior to relic cards and hits being in a pack. I mean, you open an 86 Topps pack, there's nothing to search for. Like they're
Right.
all, but when you have hits, pack searching became a thing. Pack weighing became a thing at some point after that, to try to get, you could weigh a pack and know that, 2 grams difference means there's probably a jersey card in there or something. So
yeah,
it both are unethical to me. I hate seeing that.
Yeah.
But it happens. That's, God, how do you police that? Right. I've used to have videos would come up on YouTube with guys videoing other guys pack searching and calling them out, on YouTube. That stuff used to happen pretty regularly. It's so funny to think that people may not know pack searching happens. Like, yes, it's been going on since there was a reason to pack search. So
yeah, same situation as buying a hobby box and then opening the packs until you get the hit and then selling the packs individually as if you haven't already found the hit.
Yeah, that's terrible too.
Horribly unethical.
Yes. Well, man, we covered a lot of things. We hope that you enjoyed some of this discussion, the friendly banter back and forth. Hopefully you can see how much of a, just dilemma this is to determine what's ethical and unethical. At the end of the day, try to treat people right. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Do the right thing. That's just a good motto for life, right?
Absolutely.
And especially in the hobby. We want to be around here a long time. Do the right thing.
Yep.
Wasn't that a Spike Lee movie or Spike Jones or somebody? Do the right thing.
One of those, yeah.
Somebody. They'll correct me down below. Well, thanks guys for watching. Mike, thanks for the great episode and the discussion.
Go ahead.
Always
a great discussion with you, Mike. Sorry.
Absolutely. Leave comments down below. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one. Keep collecting. Don't trim cards.